We usually think of ancient language rules and modern environmental activism as completely separate worlds, right? Well, let's dive right into this explainer, because today we're going to uncover something truly unexpected. We are looking at a traditional Sanskrit textbook chapter that brilliantly links complex linguistic structures with a powerful, urgent plea for a clean environment. The chapter is called Shuchi Paryavarana, which translates to a pure environment, and honestly, it's an absolute masterclass in using the mechanics of language to deliver a message that matters right now.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with poetry for a pure environment, then move into the architecture of words, specifically samasa. After that, we'll be breaking down Sanskrit compounds, exploring word origins with tatsam and tadbhav, hitting some essential grammar and vocabulary, and finally, testing your Sanskrit comprehension. So let's just jump right in.
Section 1. Poetry for a pure environment. Before we actually get into the grammar, we really need to understand the big picture. What is driving the author here? Because to appreciate the mechanics, we have to feel the emotion behind them.
Just listen to this quote. "The mechanical excess of the metropolis is an iron wheel that exploits the mind and body, polluting both the atmosphere and the earth." Wow, the stakes are immediately set. The poet is deeply, viscerally distressed by urban pollution. I mean, an iron wheel exploiting the mind and body? This isn't just someone complaining about a bit of smog. It's a massive reaction to the mechanical excess of city life. He feels completely trapped in a metropolis that is literally grinding down humanity and the earth, and he's desperate for an escape back to nature.
And that brings us to the source of our text, a poem by the modern Sanskrit poet Professor Hari Dutt Sharma, taken from his collection called Lasa Latika. Through these verses, he is practically begging us to leave the suffocating pollution of the city behind. He paints this incredibly vivid picture of walking away from the noise and the concrete to find the purity of rivers, serene trees, and singing birds. It is this striking, desperate contrast between the mechanical iron wheel and the peaceful refuge of the natural world. So how exactly does a master poet convey that kind of heavy, complex anxiety? That brings us to Section 2, the architecture of words, specifically samasa. We're going to look at the actual architecture of the words themselves. To express these environmental anxieties effectively, the poet relies on specific grammatical structures, chiefly something called samasa. The text defines it as samasanam samasa, meaning conciseness is a compound. Put simply, samasa is the ultimate tool for brevity in Sanskrit. It's the process of taking two or more words and squishing them together to create a single, shorter, newly bound word. This lets the poet pack an absolute ton of descriptive imagery into one tight little package, delivering a much heavier emotional punch without getting bogged down with too many words.
There are four primary blueprints or types of samasa. First is avyayabhava, where the first word is indeclinable and holds the main focus. Then there's tatpurusha, where the second word takes the spotlight. Bahuvrihi is super interesting because when you combine the words, they actually end up referring to a completely separate third entity. And finally, dvandva, where both words are treated as absolute equals. Think of these as the fundamental formulas the poet uses to construct his reality. Let's step into Section 3, breaking down Sanskrit compounds. To really grasp this incredible language tool, we've got to take these linguistic building blocks apart and see how they work in the context of our environmental poem. Let's look at a few subtypes of those Tatpurusha compounds. Take the word Kajala Malinam, which the poet uses to describe the city air. It translates to dirty like soot. It's a Karmadaraya compound, meaning one word describes the other. So instead of awkwardly saying, the air is dirty and it looks like soot, the poet fuses it into one heavy, suffocating word. Or take Tribhujam, meaning a group of three sides. That's a Dwigu compound, characterized by starting with a number. Splitting them apart like this really pulls back the curtain on how the poetry actually works. Then we have the rules for the remaining compounds, like the Dvandva examples. Remember, this is where words are treated equally. The text uses pitado, which combines mother and father into a single concept where both hold the exact same weight. Same with Rama-Lakshmanu, bringing Rama and Lakshmana together. It's just a beautiful way to show unity and balance through grammar, which, ironically, is the exact balance the poet desperately wants to see restored in our environment. All right, Section 4, Word Origins, Tatsam and Tadbhav. Language is a living, breathing thing, right? And our text gives us a fantastic window into how ancient Sanskrit words have evolved over centuries into the modern Hindi spoken by millions today.
You can visually trace this linguistic journey. First, we have the tatsam words. These are the original, pure Sanskrit forms, like prastar for stone and kajal for soot.
And then we have the tadbhav words. These are the derived, modified words used in everyday modern conversation, like patar and kajal. It just goes to show that while the environment around us is changing, often for the worse in the poet's eyes, our language adapts and changes right alongside it, carrying the echoes of the past into the present.
Section 5. Essential Grammar and Vocabulary. You honestly cannot talk about Sanskrit grammar and its poetic flow without looking at sandhi, the intricate rules of how words seamlessly join together in a sentence. These exercises pull directly from our source material and show us the mechanics of sandhi in action. It's not just about pushing words next to each other, it is about how the sounds physically blend. For example, when the word prakritihi, meaning nature, and eva, meaning only, meet, they literally snap together and transform phonetically to form prakritirva. It is this seamless joining of sounds that gives Sanskrit poetry its incredible rhythm and musicality, making the poet's plea for nature sound incredibly beautiful even when he's discussing something as ugly as pollution.
Okay, moving into Section 6, testing your Sanskrit comprehension. We've covered the emotion, the compounds, the evolution, and the joining of words. Let's make this explainer a bit interactive and see how well we've absorbed both the environmental message and the vocabulary. Here is our first question, straight from the text. Anisham Mahanagaram Adabye Kim Prachalati. Or, in English, according to the